Hi, this is Scott Garibay, and today I'm going to be talking about specifically Tulsi Gabbard. Tulsi Gabbard is a really interesting candidate for the 2020 Democrat presidential primary. She is running to win the right to run as a Democratic candidate against Donald Trump in the 2020 U.S. presidential election. Tulsi Gabbard is a really interesting candidate. Today we're going to talk about who she is, what she stands for, and what her strengths and weaknesses are. All right, so who is Tulsi Gabbard? Well, she is a U.S. Hawaii congressperson. She is the youngest person to ever be elected to to that position for Hawaii. And she was elected very young, like 21. It's really quite shocking how young she was when she was as a state representative. She was the youngest to hold that for Hawaii. So she is a younger politician, without a doubt. Okay, this is pretty incredible. She is a U.S. military veteran. Right, she served in the Iraq War. Which is very unusual. And that's you got like she served in Iraq. She served in Iraq, and she was with the National Guard. And this is pretty incredible because like she's on the Democrat side, right? But that a veteran on the Democrat side has a very specific meaning, right? Because everybody in America loves the troops. Especially in politics, everybody loves the American troops. But the Democrat Party is the one where when we went to Vietnam War, people really came out and said, "I am protesting this war. I'm protesting the activity of U.S. soldiers, right, in other countries." And the Democrats were the only party to really embrace those people and say, "We understand where you're coming from, and we want you to have a home within our party." Right? So having someone like Tulsi Gabbard, who is fully capable of using a fully automatic weapon, is fully able to care for and maintain a fully automatic weapon, that is incredibly different. It doesn't generally fit the Democrat mold, right? They are certainly the exception rather than the norm. And the reason why is part of the Democrats' playbook is gun control, right? There are extremely few national Democrat candidates in Congress or in the Senate, but certainly at the presidential level. It's hard to think of almost any Democrats, and certainly no more than 5 or 10% that are against gun control. So having a candidate that's literally capable of using a fully automatic weapon, who understands what the term rock and roll is not applied to a musical instrument, is very different, right? So it really is an incredible distinctor. So let's talk about if she's a Washington insider, an outsider, or a spike. Man, is she a spike. So she is a Washington insider. She's dyed-in-the-wool politician. But the fact that she is an Iraq veteran definitely spikes her through the box. She can be heard. She can be seen, man. She is, without a doubt, a spike. She's one of the spikiest spikes in the spike box on the Democrat side, without a doubt. Incredibly spiky, right? So, what is her policy? She only has one major issue that she really talks about in depth, that she's really passionate about. And that is, she is a non-interventionist, and she is a major non-interventionist. She believes that America has absolutely no business in regime change, right? So she doubles down on this opinion. When asked if she thinks the Iraq War was worth it, she says no. When she and she even says she doesn't support the military activity that the U.S. took in regards to Syria with Assad, right, who was called by a considerable number of nations a war criminal, right? So that's really different. And she triples down on this to the point where she actually personally met with the president of Syria, Assad. Now, this absolutely has some context because recently Trump has been meeting with Kim Jong-il, right? So it's not a non-presidential position, right? So the reality is Tulsi Gabbard is a incredibly different candidate. And by the way, I don't list any other policies here because generally that's it. Like that is her main thing. Now, one thing I really like about that is very much like Andrew Yang, where Andrew Yang is like UBI, universal basic income. And that is his drum, and he will bang that drum, right? And Tulsi Gabbard, this is her drum. She is really, really down on non-interventionism, right? It's pretty incredible. All right, so that's her policy. What are her strengths and weaknesses? So she has some really distinct strengths. She is truly unique, right? So one, being the youngest state representative for Hawaii in its entire history means she is a young candidate, right? And with Trump up in I think he's like 60 or 70 years old, right? If you put somebody who's very young, right, next to them, it's going to show, right? Because it's all cameras, right? So she is a very, very young candidate, and I think that's going to absolutely be a strength for Tulsi Gabbard. Because and one of the reasons why is there are a lot of young people, and they want to see themselves reflected. If you're a young person, you maybe want to see somebody who reflects young, vibrant, dynamic attitudes, right? And Tulsi Gabbard is able to do that because she's literally young, right? Certainly younger than Trump. Well, I don't think anyone would say that Trump was young, right? Like 60, 70 years old. But I mean, you're really stretching the definition of words there if you're really saying that that she's young. So it's important, right? The other thing is, as far as her strengths, she is Hindu, right? So she would be our first Hindu American, right? And so for people who would really like to see that happen, that opportunity does not come up much, right? So that's a strength, right? She really is quite, the other thing is she is a high intersectionality candidate, without a doubt, right? Now, what are her weaknesses? Well, she's got some very unusual weaknesses. So one, if you squint at her policies, right, you might mistake her for a Republican, and a lot of people have. There are some shocking conservatives who have come out and say they support her. Now that kind of makes sense because conservatives absolutely love U.S. soldiers, right? And she is a U.S. soldier, right? And there's extremely little ambiguity on liking U.S. soldiers on the and basically whatever they're committed to on the Republican side. Whereas the Democrat side, they're like, hey, we will absolutely protest U.S. soldiers and their their activities in other lands. I mean, it was proven and stamped like in gold with the Vietnam War. It was very, very much like we will absolutely protest U.S. soldier activity in other countries. So it's very, very it's distinct, right? The other, I think, so that will be very difficult for Democrats to really embrace. I think the fact that she is some of her views are so far right, and the fact that she is a U.S. soldier, actually, it's not viewed in the Democrat Party the way it is in the U.S. in the Republican Party, and that's just the issues of guns. Guns are really, really seen differently, right? If you have a Republican candidate who can field strip an assault rifle, right? Like that's a plus, right? Like there are a lot of Republicans who'd be like, yeah, I want to see more of that. You do that on the Democrat side, you might find yourself with a real problem real quick, right? And so Tulsi Gabbard, she's a U.S. soldier, and that comes with a lot of freight on the Democrat side, where, if you unpack that box of freight on the Republican side, it's all goodies to the Republicans. If you unpack that box of freight on the Democrat side, you might find some things that aren't really goodies on the Democrat side. It's really, really incredibly different. There are a couple other strengths I thought of. And one of them is she truly thinks differently, right? So she is a unique candidate. It is not going, and this is a strength. She is not going to be difficult for her to stand out from the pack. It really is not. And the reason why is she is a major, right? Like she truly truly thinks quite differently than anyone else there. Another strength she has is she is going to be able to absolutely lock up every vote for every person. Her one policy stance, right? Non-interventionism. It will be a deadlock win for every single person who really cares about international policy and the nuances of international policy. She'll win every one of them, right? Like maybe 1% will go off. But if you're really into international politics and you're really into nuanced versions of international politics, Tulsi Gabbard locks it up, right? Like just super locks it up. So she is an incredibly different candidate. So that's my thought on her. I do want to say her chances, if the primary were held today, I think she would have 25% chance of winning the primaries. If the general were held today, I think she would have a 40% chance of winning the general election against Trump. One of the things is I do think she would absolutely rock against Trump on camera, and also she's got some kick to her, right? Like when you hear her talk, I think Trump is going to come at like a pit bull, whoever they put on the stage against him in debates, and every day on Twitter, and every day in the camera's eye, right? And she's literally a fighter, like not like figuratively. Oh, I'm a fighter, like some of the candidates say, right? Like I think Kamala Harris was like, I'm a fighter, right? Like, yes, figuratively you are a fighter, right? But Tulsi Gabbard is literally a fighter, right? And so I think, when you're dealing with somebody like Donald Trump, having a quite literal fighting spirit is a very good thing. So I think she would have about a 40% chance of beating Trump in the election in the general, right? And I think more than many of the other candidates, I think she would have an easier time managing Donald Trump and beating him, right? Winning the camera and controlling the camera. And of course, she does meet all the regular. Actually, she has some issues on some of the So basically, the absolute basics are: you have to be able to communicate, you have to be intelligent, and you have to be scandal-free, right? Major scandal-free. Right, and the reality is she's had some scandals in her past, just perception stuff, nothing really that outrageous, but I think she's dealt with them. So I think she does absolutely meet the basic criteria. That's my thoughts on Tulsi Gabbard. I'm curious what you think about Tulsi Gabbard. Really interesting, really interesting candidate. Let me know in the comments below. Please consider liking and subscribing, and have a wonderful day.